Hello and welcome into the first edition of Investing in the Future. I'm the Forsyth County Manager, Kevin Tanner. We are very excited to be in the home of the Broncos, East Forsyth High School, for this 5-part video series. We greatly appreciate the staff of the school for letting us utilize their amazing state-of-the-art broadcast television studio, and more importantly, bright students to produce this series with the county communications team. Gentlemen, as we look around this studio, how great is this?
This is amazing, and the students are very impressive. Their hard work is phenomenal.
I think you said it, Kevin. What a state-of-the-art facility here in Forsyth County, and the staff has just been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, Kevin, I want to echo what these gentlemen said. It's a great opportunity to partner with our Board of Education and utilize the students in this program that they have here at East.
Yes, thank you so much for all they've done for us. Over 5 episodes, we will look at some of the county's major projects and topics of discussion, including the county's financial plan for the future of wise investing, the upcoming T-Splosh referendum, and how, if passed, it would be used for transportation improvements, the current state of public safety with Sheriff Ron Freeman and Fire Chief Barry Head, and the county's plans for a new administration campus, and how a new water intake on Lake Lanier will be a legacy impact. For this first episode, I am glad to be joined by Chief Financial Officer Mark Turk and Assistant County Managers Brandon Kinney and David McKee. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Mark, from a very high-level perspective, tell us what kind of financial state the county is in.
The county is in great shape financially. We have relatively low debt and strong reserves, and that is due to the Board of Commissioners in their diligence in making sure that the county stays on strong financial footing.
That's great. One of the things we talk a lot about internally, and we challenge our team to make sure we retain it, but that's the AAA bond rating. Talk a little bit about what that means when citizens hear that we have a AAA bond rating and why it's so important to maintain that.
That's a great sense of pride or source of pride for the county. Just like consumers have 3 credit rating agencies that rate their credit, there are 3 commercial credit rating agencies as well. And each of those counties, starting in 2019, rated Forsyth County AAA. And that is the highest rating that you can get. And so we have AAA bond ratings from each of the 3 agencies. And there are only 4 counties in the state of Georgia with that distinction. And even more, there are only 47 counties out of more than 3,000 counties nationwide that can say that.
I don't think that can be overemphasized. So Forsyth County is one of only 4 counties in the entire state of Georgia that has that AAA bond rating.
That is correct.
And in the entire country, there's only 47 counties, including Forsyth County, that holds that distinction.
That is correct.
And that has a direct impact on the amount that we can borrow money. Is that correct?
Well, what it does is it allows us to borrow money at the lowest rates possible because of those great rates, and it doesn't get any better. And with the interest rate environment that we have seen recently, it makes a huge difference. The county was able to refund, another way of saying refinance, bonds earlier this year, and we were able to save cumulatively $7 million in that transaction. So having that AAA bond rating really makes a difference.
That's great. And you hit on one thing when you said that the county has low debt. Talk a little bit about, from the general operations side of government, what the plan is to pay that debt off and when we think that could happen.
Sure. The Board of Commissioners, in their foresight, were very forward-thinking in the approval of the 2023 budget that was recently passed in August of 22. And in that, $6 million of the property tax digest proceeds, which is the bulk of what the county is getting in terms of new money from that digest, is being allocated to the bond fund. So as we speak, the county has about $250 million of general obligation debt, and the county can borrow legally nearly $1.5 billion. So when I say low, that's what I mean by low. And with this additional $6 million, the county is going to advance pay some of the debt that's outstanding. And if four things occur, meaning if the digest doesn't decrease, if we don't take on new general obligation debt, if we continue to apply the revenue toward advanced payment of the debt, and the millage rate doesn't change, we should be able to, instead of going to 2035 when the debt is actually, all of the debt is actually due and the last payment is made, we can pull that into the year 2031. If I recall correctly, you challenged me to try and do that in this decade, so we'll be working hard to do that.
That's right, and I'm not sure that there's any other county similar to Forsyth out there, especially in the state of Georgia, that would be able to have the distinction of being debt-free from a general obligation perspective.
You're right.
You're right
with all of the things that we're doing.
This is it's an exciting time, and the challenge still stands. So debt-free this decade. We also talk internally a lot about unrestricted fund balance and why that's important. I think that's a little bit of a foreign term to a lot of our citizens. Talk a little bit about why that's important to have that unrestricted fund balance.
Yes, the unrestricted fund balance for business owners is called equity. For individuals, it's called net worth. It is essentially the same thing. And the Government Finance Officers Association recommends that municipalities and governments maintain 2 months of that unreserved or unrestricted fund balance. Our board policy, the commissioners adopted, requires a minimum of 3 months. And through your administration, we have upped that, and now we maintain 33% or 4 months of a year of unrestricted fund balance. And what that does is it helps the county to weather the storm or any economic or financial downturns that inevitably come. It allows the county to continue to operate as normal.
Yeah, because I know you and I have spent a lot of time talking about this on a regular basis as we continue to monitor revenue and expenses. One of the things we want to ensure is when we do have that next downturn, that Forsyth County is positioned not to have to raise taxes, not to have to lay employees off, but we can weather that storm much better than many of our neighbors will be able to do it.
Absolutely, that is the charge.
Brandon, we're going to dive in a future episode much deeper into this, but talk a little bit about the future administration building and why it's needed.
Yeah, I think, Kevin, we've touched a little bit on the growth of Forsyth County, and I think our ability to deliver services to the citizens of Forsyth has grown as well. Currently, we're in the process of moving 14 of our departments up underneath one roof, which today those departments are spread out. What does that do? It creates additional cost on the citizens of Forsyth County. I believe we're spending in the neighborhood of close to $500,000 in lease payments just to be able to house some of our various departments. I think the bigger point of that, though, is really looking at the new admin campus being citizen-focused and really designing that campus around our ability to efficiently deliver services to our citizens. And kind of a one-stop shop, I believe, is a very good term for what we're trying to do there for the citizens of Forsyth County.
That's great. I know, Mark, we just talked about funding, we just talked about debt, we just talked about our internal desire and plans to pay debt off, and not one of the points you made, one of the 4 points was that plan hinges on not taking on more debt. So we're talking about building this new campus. How are we going to pay for it?
Well, we'll talk about this in a future episode, so I don't want to get too deep and spoil it, but there are 3 buildings that are coming. They each have 3 different funding sources. The money is available for all 3 buildings now, and the county will not have to take on any additional debt to fund them.
So the entire county campus, all 3 buildings, when it's finished, the plan would be no additional debt, all the buildings paid for.
Fully.
That's great. Again, I'm not sure that there's anybody else in the state that could say they can pull that off. So thank you for what your team's doing, Mark.
Thank you.
David, this is another topic we will get into in future episodes also, but one of the things we want to talk about is transportation projects. Talk a little bit about, in the past, looking back, how the county has funded transportation projects.
Kevin, transportation projects, we all know, are becoming more and more expensive every day. In the past, the county has funded transportation projects in two main functions, two basic ways. One being through their SPLOST, through a function of the SPLOST funds that we have, special purpose local option sales tax. The other main funding source is a 2014 transportation bond. There are some limiting factors there, and I think in a future episode we'll discuss those a little bit more in detail, but primarily a transportation bond or a SPLOST is the two primary functions.
You mentioned about the expense of these projects. I know one of the examples that you and I hold up a lot about to the citizens about how expensive transportation is and to fund Post Road. And a lot of our citizens are very familiar with Post Road. Just to complete Post Road, as far as the design, acquiring the right-of-way, and actually constructing it, is estimated to cost $100 million. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct, and that's two phases. Recently, the governor's office adjusted some funds to do the phase one from State Route 9 over to Kelly Mill. The second phase would be from Kelly Mill to State Route 20, so that entire corridor is a $100 million project. The bond we just talked about was a $200 million bond. So essentially you could do two of those large projects. The one project that was successful from the bond, two projects actually to speak of, is the 400 lane widening. That was funded through that bond project. We delivered on that. The other project is the 369 400 interchange. The remainder of that, we got a great deal in that construction and the interchange of the 400 and 369 project.
Well, and you hit on something about delivered on. I think Forsyth County's done an outstanding job making some commitments to their citizens around transportation and actually delivering on those promises. So thank you for what your team's doing. You also hit on something else earlier about T-Splosh, and I know we're going to take a deep dive into that in a later episode, but how would T-Splosh factor into the funding of future transportation projects?
So yes, we will take a deep dive into that. T-Splost is much like a SPLOST, with the exception that it's a transportation special purpose local option sales tax specifically dedicated to transportation. T-Splost is spread out over a number of years with our partnership at GDOT, and we'll get into a little bit more of that in a future episode. With our partnership at Georgia Department of Transportation, the T-Splost plays a huge role in being able to fund these projects. Being one of the fastest growing counties in the state of Georgia, we are not immune to the transportation issues. We have a plan that we're currently updating, a 2018 transportation improvement plan that we're following, and we're improving that now. So it's a constant cycle that we're working through to do that. And transportation SPLOST, the T-Splost, is a huge project, a huge product of being able to deliver that.
Good, thank you. David, Brandon, Mark, thank you for being with us, for all that you all do and all your staff are doing to take care of Forsyth County. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And thank you for making Forsyth County such a financially stable community to raise a family in.
Thank you.
Okay, we have covered a lot of the ground here today and still have a lot more to cover in the weeks ahead with these three, along with other guests from around the county who will provide their insight. Join us for episode 2 of Investing in the Future when we talk about T-Splosh and the impact it could have on the county if passed this November. So long for now.